Welcome to the Ask Coach Mac podcast, where coaches from around the world get their strength and conditioning questions answered.
What's up, guys? Ron McKeefery here, and welcome to episode number 18 of Ask Coach Mac. Thank you so much for joining me today. We have a great question from Terrance, but before we get to that, we want to thank today's sponsor, Iron Grip. If you're in the market for plates, dumbbells, or bars, these are my go-to guys. I've put Iron Grip plates and dumbbells in 3 facilities, including my own garage, where my family and I work out. I've had nothing but positive experiences with them and love the fact that they are manufactured in the U.S. For more information, go to www.irongrip.com. Follow them on Twitter at iron_grip or call Chris DeSanto at 509-230-3124. All right, here's today's question from Terrance.
Coach Mac, I was wondering how you instill discipline into somebody that's just generally undisciplined. I feel like you can't tighten the reins overly, but you also can't let them do what they want and get away with it. So, I was wondering if there's a middle ground on that, or if maybe you had another insight as to how you do that.
Terrance, dealing with athletes that are unaccountable to themselves is a very frustrating experience. We've all experienced that. We've all gone through that. Typically, strength and conditioning coaches are principle-based. People, they're pretty morally driven people, and just have a hard time with people that won't accept accountability for themselves and their actions. And so it's often difficult to deal with an athlete that's not responding that way. And so the first thing I think you need to do, and that I would recommend everybody listening do, is whenever you take over a situation or you go into a situation for the first time, I think you need to sit down and you need to have a discussion with the head coach, the coaching staff, and the administration. Nothing will make it more difficult than to have your legs cut out from underneath you from somebody that is an authority of you when you're trying to deal with an athlete. It perpetuates the actions that they've taken. It sends a message to the rest of the team that the coaching staff or the administration doesn't really fully support you with their actions. Sometimes they'll say that they support you with their words, but they don't support you with their actions. And so sitting down with them, discussing all the possible, it's hard to do it with all the possible, but try to get as many things out, typical things that you'll deal with late, people not showing up on time or not showing up or talking back or whatever it may be. Laying out a bunch of things and just say, hey, look, what have you typically done as a head coach, as part of the coaching staff or the administration with athletes that have dealt like this? And you'll find most of the time that they've never really sat down and done this. They've never really sought to find a structured deal because, they want to hide behind every athlete's different, every, experience is different, and they want to kind of be a firefighter where they're gonna put out the fires as they rise. But doing it on the front end, at least now you've had the discussion that this is what you're gonna do, and you can always point back to that discussion later on if you're having a moment of disagreement. That, hey, look, we sat down, we talked about this. This is what we all agreed upon as a course of action, and so for all those reasons of not having sending the wrong message to the team and this, that, and the other, we need to hold true to that. And so I think that's the first thing, is agreeing on a course of action for most infractions and trying to minimize that as few responses as possible. The other thing I think, that's very important as coaches is that you need to do what you say and you need to say what you mean, and so don't just constantly get up in front of the team and threaten, and then you never follow up with that. I mean, a good example for us, we have some, we do some things nutritionally that have wrappers, and I tell the team that, if I pick up wrappers, then I'm going to take it away. And so what we typically do is if I go around and I pick up wrappers from where guys just started littering everywhere, then I'll shut down the stacks for a week, and I do what I say and I say what I mean. Now that doesn't mean that I eliminate it for the entire time, and you got to try to stay away from those extremes. But doing it for a week sends a message that what, this is this is not a right, it is a privilege, and doing this, not doing what you're supposed to do, will hurt the team, hurt yourself, the whole deal. And I think the other thing that I always talk to my athletes about, I tell them two things. One is I'm going to treat them like adults. I expect them to act like adults, and so I'm always going to fight as an advocate for them to try to get to a place of autonomy. I want them to be able to make decisions for themselves. I want them to make the right decision for themselves. And so, just like on the playing field, we're not going to cross the sideline and be able to coach them up every minute, every day. They need to have some autonomy, and they need to grow up. They need to, they need to grow up during these 4 or 5 years of their life and determine what type of adult, what type of person they're going to be in their life. And we want that to be a person of consistency and doing the right thing and acting like adults and being proper and all those types of things. And so we need to reinforce that. I think the other thing we tell them is that abuse brings on control, and so, if they can't do those things, then we're going to start to take away some of those rights that a person that has earned autonomy would typically get. And so again, going back to that example, by taking away something like the snacks, it's showing them that, hey, look, we can treat you like 2-year-olds and take away snack time if you're not going to do what you need to do, or you can act like an adult and you can get snacks and everybody's happy. And so that's good. And then I think the last thing is you need to have a solid accountability structure. And so for us, like I said, you need to reduce those responses to as few as many. We pretty much have a late and a miss policy, and then typically kind of general responses to disciplinary things. And so first, the late, things happen. I mean, car accidents, weather, this, that, and the other. Of course, I don't want people to be late. I never want to send the message that that's okay. But it's just like a 5-yard penalty, jumping off sides penalty or something like that on the field. That athlete did not want to jump off sides, but it happened. And rather than break down trust barriers and say, I think that you wanted to do that or this, that, or the other, it's the same thing with being late. Them coming and saying, hey, coach, there was a car accident, there was this, there was that, there was the other. I don't want to come across as I don't believe them. But there is accountability, just like on the playing field, the jumping off sides, there is accountability. And so the first time they're late, they do 50 up downs. The team does 50 up downs. That lift group does 50 up downs, and they have 100. So that way it's sending the message that everybody is affected by your action, and you're going to, you need to accept responsibility, and that it's, that you should want to do more for your team because of what you put them through. The second time, it's 100 for the team and 200 for the individual. The third time, it's an automatic 8, 8, and 8. Okay, so again, we want to correct things, and so we don't want them to be late. So first time, hey, what? It's unemotional. You come in, you didn't do it. You didn't show up on time. Everybody hits their quick 50. You hit another 50. We move on. The second time, a pattern's starting to form. Now the team's got to do more. You got to do more. And if a third hit in time happens, it's a pattern. A miss or an 8, 8, and 8. The first time you do an 8, 8, and 8, it's 8 laps around the field, 800 yards up downs, doing an up down every 10 yards, and you're doing 8 prowler pushes unloaded across the field. The second time you do it, your position group has to wake up. This is done at 6 a.m. The second time you do it, the position group has to wake up. Your position coach has to be there. They're watching you do it, and now you do it instead of doing it up down every 10 yards, you're doing it every 5, and you've added 90 pounds to the prowler. A third time, it's a meeting with the head coach, and it's either a suspension or they have to do another 8, 8, and 8. The position coach has to be there. The position has to be there. And they're doing it every 2.5 yards, and they have 180 pounds in the prowler. And so, again, in that structure, if it's a disciplinary action, they did something, they were a jerk on campus or something, they start with an 8, 8, and 8, and we work from there. And again, it's not so much that It's unovercomable, but it's a good reminder that, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have, I don't want to have to go through that again. And so when dealing with the unaccountable, get your administration, coaching staff on board, be a consistent message, do what you say and say what you mean, and then have an accountability structure in place so they know what they're choosing. And that's oftentimes what I'll do with them is say, hey, look, by not doing this, you are choosing this, and that usually clears things up. And so, Terrance, I hope that answers your question. Would love to hear what everyone else thinks. Use the hashtag AskCoachMac18 to continue the discussion over on Twitter. Terrance, thanks for your question. I want to encourage everyone else that if you have a question that you would like to potentially be featured on the show, head over to AskCoachMac.com. There you can ask your question by hitting the record button at the bottom of the page. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate you. And here's a quote to finish off the day by Jim Rohn. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Take care, guys. I'll see you in the next episode of Ask Coach Mac. Bye for now.